Hi, hello, and welcome back to The High Method. My name is Jen Hatz. I am the host of the High Method podcast and also the founder of The High Method, a holistic, integrative, and innovative approach to assessing and optimizing human health, well-being, and performance. And I'm partnered with Neuroforce One, a human performance company that has been training champions for years, and they offer training and assessments in their facility as well as remote options available. And if you are an athlete or the coach of an athlete or the parent of an athlete or guardian of an athlete, then you might want to hear this about how to prepare for the summertime when it comes to summertime fueling and hydration tactics. So the reason why we want to zero in on specifically how we're approaching fueling and hydration, but especially during summertime, is because of that obvious change in the weather, an obvious change in the temperature and the humidity and the conditions or the environmental factors that are at play while we are at play, and the impact that that could have on us in potentially a negative impact, really, in increasing our core temperature beyond our ability to properly thermoregulate and to safely do that and to safely move through the sweating and cool down that we would need to move through for our body to be safe under those conditions. So this is obviously a very I was going to say like a hot topic, not to make a pun. That came up right on the fly there. So that's a little bit of a pun, but so it's a hot topic to say the least. But especially now that we have these, if anything, a more drastic shifting and changing across our environmental conditions. So there's a little less predictability about the temperature or the conditions that you might be exposed to. And so having a stronger sense of preparedness and having a plan of action, having a course of action that you are following through on, so that way you are prepared for whatever conditions you are exposed to or whatever environmental conditions that there are around you at any given time, and also that you're able to acclimate appropriately and you're able to accommodate to any extremes in the weather. So trying to prepare ourselves as best as possible to handle these kind of extremes in weather. And then when you add the element of exercise or play or physical activity of any sort, that heightens the stress that your body is experiencing in addition to the stressors of the environment around you. So there's kind of this confounding variables here that before you know it, it's a compounding interest, right? Compounding effect, that the effect of stress that your body's experiencing could end up being a negative and not a positive. But we want to keep it positive. We want to make sure that we're having a good experience overall from whatever the play that, practice or games or just workout in general, physical activity in general. If we're just really active because we're going to camp or just staying active throughout summertime. So we want to have fun and have positive experiences overall while still being prepared for those ebbs and flows when it comes to temperature and how our body's handling all of these different stressors. So all that being said, the reason why we want to focus on all this is because there are things within our control that we can start to tap into. And so first we want to focus on what we're doing to hydrate and hydrate properly. Now, the reason why I emphasize properly is because there is a very high risk to you if you overdo it or if you underdo it. So if you are overhydrated, that is a risk to you. That is actually a potential threat to you, not only for just being, we'll say, shifting your electrolyte concentrations out of balance, but at the far end of the extreme, you could end up in the hospital for it. I myself have ended up in the hospital because of overhydration, and it is not fun. I was actually at risk for brain swelling by the time I got to the hospital. So this is not something you want to play around with. So you want to avoid that end of the extreme of overdoing it with your hydration, but also you want to avoid the opposite end of the spectrum, and that is not doing enough. That is waiting too long to properly take in fluids and foods to hydrate. And it's going to impact your ability to thermoregulate properly when you are under these conditions of high stress, whether that's from physical activity alone, from the heat alone, or from the combination of both. So we want to zero in on the right, proper amount of hydration and the right tactics for hydration. So the best way to approach this is to view the combination of foods and fluids as both equally contributing to your hydration status. This is how you get away from these risks at the two ends of the spectrum of underdoing it or overdoing it, because instead it's allowing you right away to sit in the middle of that spectrum, having this balance of food and fluids that are both equally contributing to your hydration status. Now, how do you do that? So your fluid intake, you want to gauge basically a minimum for your fluid intake that it's no more than half of your body weight in pounds. So if you want to take that number, whatever your body weight in pounds is, half of that in ounces. So if you weigh 150 pounds, half of that would be 75 pounds. And now you're just going to say, take away the pounds, make it ounces, 75 ounces. So if you think about like that, so half of your body weight in pounds in ounces of fluids. So this is total fluids, not just water and not just plain water, but this includes water, any electrolyte drinks, any oral rehydration drinks like Pedialyte, any smoothies or milk or coffee or tea drinks. This is all of your fluids throughout the day that can equal up to this minimum. Now, beyond that minimum is going to be based on your activity and on the conditions around you, the environmental conditions. So for you want to gauge it like 15 to 20 minutes of activity, try to aim for maybe 4 to 8 ounces of fluids. So that could just be sipping on water, really, every so often. Maybe throughout activity, it's like through every set or every depending on what we're talking about. If we're talking about practice and it's a rep for practice, or if it's like a workout and you're doing sets in a workout, try to get in the habit of sipping on water between all of this. So that way you are taking in just small sips all throughout this time. So that way you are still taking something in. You're in the habit of taking it in. You're not waiting until you're already depleted, and you're not overdoing it by chugging. So it's sips throughout this period of time. And you can handle just plain water during these situations up to about 60 to 75 minutes. So if you're moving past an hour's worth of actual movement, whether it's, again, practice or game or workout or exercise or just play, like you're just out playing or doing something, then once you get past that mark of about 60 to 75 minutes, once you're getting close to maybe an hour and a half, that's the big kind of zone where you start to needing to take in more electrolytes. So at that point, you can start taking in electrolyte drinks, and you can add electrolytes to your water through there's different supplements that have like a powder, for instance, that you can add into your water, and you can just add that in and start sipping on that, and you're getting electrolytes in with your water. You can also just have some snacks. So in this case, this is where we're starting to add in this combination of foods and fluids to help support your hydration. So you can add in snacks here and there that have some salt or have some sodium content to them, and that is going to help provide the electrolytes coming in that you would have otherwise gotten from a supplement or a drink, for instance. So having that combination of foods and fluids, in this case, the foods that could provide sodium or salt, think of like pickles. Probably the most perfect summertime high sodium food, but this is a proper use of high sodium foods because you're using it in this case to restore electrolytes that could be lost in sweat, but also specifically to help balance out for the fluid intake that you are taking in during this period of time. So having some pickles on hand to snack on, having other salty snacks like even pretzels or any other, salty snack that you like to have on hand. And sometimes what I'll do is just add literally a little bit of salt into a drink, or I'll salt my foods. You can have different broths and broth-based soups as, something that you have within meals or with meals. You can add basically any type of these salty or high sodium foods throughout your days, especially during summertime, to help support the fluid intake that you are taking in and to help balance out for the water and electrolytes that you are taking in. Now, something else that you want to start adding in as you get to this point where, again, you're past the 60 to 75 minute time frame, you're getting close to maybe an hour and a half. Basically, it's a longer duration that you are being active. You can also start to add different carbohydrate sources at this point in time. And so the best sources for carbohydrates, especially under this topic of trying to hydrate yourself well through foods and fluids, is through fruit. Have some fresh fruit available as often as possible, whenever possible. Having some oranges, some grapes, some bananas, having some watermelon, having fruit that is going to provide you this nice boost of carbohydrates that you're going to digest very well. And it's also coming in its whole food form, which for you is a benefit because you will digest it very well. It's going to digest well. It's going to move at the rate and the pace that it needs to move through your digestive system so that you're actually extracting it appropriately. And this process of you digesting food helps you to also regulate not only the rate that you're digesting food, but also the rate that you're absorbing fluids. This is the key here, why we want to combine fluids and foods in our approach towards hydrating ourselves, because having that combination of food present with fluid is going to regulate how quickly or slowly you absorb everything. Because it does not matter what you take in by mouth, how much, how fast. What matters is your absorption of it, whether or not you are absorbing it too quickly or too slowly, if you're even absorbing it at all. And having that combination of foods and fluids contributing to your overall needs is going to help time out the rate, so that way you're really much more intentionally absorbing what you want to be absorbing, really. And your body is allowing you to absorb appropriately. It has its own kind of self-regulating system. So it knows how much to absorb. It knows when it's good, and it can slow down. It knows what to remove from your system. So you're allowing it to do that by taking in combinations of foods and fluids. So all of that to say, so you want to focus on fluids, focus on having, if anything, at practices specifically, especially if you're a coach or a parent, prioritize the fluids as water. Prioritize having cold, clean water, because that is the number one fluid that you need to be replacing. You can add also then foods that contain the sodium and electrolytes. So you can add pickles and all those salty snacks. You can add foods like fruit to get the carbohydrates that you would get. And so that combination of water and those salty snacks and fresh fruit and, carbohydrates from the fresh fruit, that combination of everything is precisely what is going to be the most beneficial for you and for the athletes really specifically in absorbing and maintaining their hydration status. So focus all of your attention and effort on those key things. What you don't need to focus on is buying sports drinks, because everything that I just explained about having water, having high sodium or high electrolyte types of foods, and having foods that are going to contain those carbohydrates like fruit, that's all going to contribute to what an athlete needs. The, added sports drinks is nothing that you need to focus on, because you're already getting everything that you need. And the thing is, sports drinks are actually designed in a way, they have been designed in a way to have a certain concentration of sodium and sugar that is providing carbohydrates. The thing is, everything that I just said about how you absorb, within a timely rate that is best for you. When you're drinking a sports drink, there's a change in how you're absorbing all this. And that change is happening within the gut. And so it's actually the concentration of the sports drink is actually pulling water into your gut, holding it in your gut, and it's putting you at a worse outcome when it comes to your hydration status. It is actually keeping you from being fully hydrated, because it's not absorbing the way that water would and the way that food would. Instead, it's absorbing in a different way. So I hope that that's coming across as easy to understand, that a sports drink is not being absorbed the way that water would because of the concentration of it. And that's specific to what's happening within the gut. And we want to focus on whether or not we're actually absorbing what we're taking in, because that's what matters. So focus on that combination of everything. And if anything, probably another added little tip there, keep everything as cold as possible, as iced down as possible. If you want to invest in a cooler that you can keep, nice and iced down, and just have those snacks on hand, have some grapes, some oranges, some watermelon, have some pickles, and have that cold, clean water, have everything on hand right there. And if you wanted to focus on something as like a post-workout or post-practice type of a way to refuel and rehydrate, focus on different milks, whether it's a dairy milk or soy milk or almond milk, and using those different milks, depending on the age group that you're working with, you might want to add protein powder and creatine. So if this is maybe older, like teens or college age, that's a perfect time for that kind of a recovery drink. Otherwise, younger populations, like kids especially, some sort of milk is going to help with overall hydration, but also adding in foods. So again, focusing on those foods, focus on some fresh fruits. The fruits are not only contributing those carbohydrates, but they also have water content as part of them. They are composed of water. So they're providing also water that is separate from the plain water that you're drinking, right? And so again, with the drinks, you want to have these variety of different drinks too. So hopefully this has given you enough kind of foresight of what to focus on, so that way you are preparing your athletes well to stay hydrated under these different conditions, and that way you can prevent overhydration and underhydration or dehydration, because either end of those spectrums is detrimental to the health and performance of the athletes. Feel free to drop a comment below if you have any questions about this topic. And also, if you learned something new about this topic, please feel free to drop a comment below and let me know. Otherwise, if you all can like, share, and subscribe so we can spread the love and spread the light. Thank you. Bye-bye.